So speaking about jersey sales, the Chicago Cubs sold a lot of Shota Imanaga jerseys. Very popular player, especially when he comes over from the MPB, signs a multi-year deal, and Cubs fans, they're told it's going to be a good pitcher. And in his first year, he pitches to an ERA under 3. He wasn't throwing 100 miles an hour, but that 93-mile-an-hour fastball at the top of the zone was certainly working and became a huge fan favorite. But after this season, regresses in the ERA department and certainly in a lot of the underlying metrics. And a lot of it had to do with his massive home run problem that showed up in a big way in the playoffs. That's why a team that, even though they lost their go-to guy in Cade Horton, they still were hesitant to go to Shota Imanaga.
Yeah.
And now today, the Cubs decided to move on from Shota. So basically, Shota can accept the qualifying offer at about $22 million, or he can decline it. The Cubs get a draft pick out of it, and Shota becomes a free agent. And a big reason why I wanted to talk about this is not only because this is big news, but on social media, I've seen a ton of people clowning the Cubs for this move. How could you do it? It's only 3 years, $57 million. The Cubs continue to penny pinch. And what I will say is, on this very show, all three of us, you, myself, and Jack, have all ridiculed the Cubs for penny pinching in the past. And that is certainly something that they are guilty of doing. But in this case, I think they made the perfect move here. Shota is 32 years old. His fastball velocity continues to decline this year, 90.8 miles an hour. The exit velocity on that pitch went up 2 miles an hour. It still got the same type of spin, but he wasn't as pinpoint with the location. And with a guy with a somewhat limited pitch mix, who's not getting the same velocity, the same type of movement that he was, we saw the results. Now, do you want to put that pitcher in the middle of your rotation for the next 3 years? Not particularly. Would I be interested in potentially trying it for one more year in his age 33 season? Yes, and that's why extending him the qualifying offer is exactly what I would have done. I don't think this is the Cubs penny pinching. I think this is optimizing their offseason. I think they're off to a great start here.
Well, and you have to also, I think, because I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the important part too is GM/front office and ownership are always going to be, I think, working together, but at a lot of points working with the constraints that ownership creates, right? So I think at this point, if you're Jed Hoyer, you know that you're not going to have the payroll that you probably should. And is this the time that you're going to go up the chain and say, give me more money? I got to keep Shota. I don't know if that's the time that he wants to try to do that if you're Jed. And that's a reality. Like, you could say, oh, well, maybe they're pinching pennies. Like, if money isn't a thing, sure, pick up the option, whatever. He eats innings for you in the back end, and it's fine. If you're a team that, really doesn't care about the finances as much. But the reality is Jed knows that he's working with a little bit more constraints than some of the other big market teams. And if you don't love the idea of bringing this guy back, then unfortunately, like, that's going to have to be the tough decision that you make. And it's the multi-year commitment aspect. I think that you bring up that great point too, because you'll get a lot of the money that they have committed. I think the Cubs are probably looking forward to a 2027 where, at the other side of the lockout, we have some more clarity there. They have a lot of money coming off the books, and maybe that'll be the time that they finally, really, really push the chips forward. But I think they're excited about the fact that a lot of guys are coming off the books then. I think Hoyer, knowing that he's going to have to work with some sort of financial constraints naturally, that they're not going to be able to just blow through the luxury tax threshold. Shota being 32 years old, and, I think that's another important wrinkle too. It's like, we've only seen him for a couple of years in the bigs. Doesn't mean that he's not aging still. Like, he's throwing a lot of years in the NPB or an NPB. And then the other side of it is they're going to get Steele back. Matthew Boyd is really good. Cade Horton's looked like a major piece for them moving forward. And Jameson Taillon was just flat out better. So I think they feel like they can probably, adjust and reinvest there. That said, I can understand the surprise, right? Like, I think two things can be true. It can be surprising, but not necessarily a bad move. And correct. I think both of those things are true here, because it's like, oh, he was so good and it's not a bad contract. 100%. And if they picked it up, I don't think anyone would have said that's bad. But given that they need the money and wiggle room, and like maybe that's money they funnel towards Kyle Tucker, maybe that's money that they funnel towards the bullpen. I can understand not wanting to use that, whatever amount of money. I don't know how much wiggle room, but I know Jed Hoyer knows how much wiggle room he has this year. Not wanting to allocate a good chunk of the wiggle room you have financially to a guy that was just terrible in the second half.
So I agree with 90% of what you said. The only two things that I disagree with, and maybe what this is showing is how low I am on Imanaga compared to the market, is if this was the Dodgers, if this was the Mets, I mean, maybe not the Mets because they need starting pitchers, but a team with an enormous payroll, I don't care how much money you have. Spending $57 million over the next 3 years for Shota Imanaga, I don't think is the right move. You look at the underlying metrics and they say a 4.86 FIP. The strikeout rate plummeted. The only thing that he did at an elite level was limit the walks. But whenever he was in the zone, I mean, if we're talking about hard hit rates, one of the lowest in baseball, and if you're going to allow a lot of hard contact, at least keep it on the ground. But Shota Imanaga had one of the lowest ground ball rates in all of baseball. So you said that if a team with a lot of money was doing this and just picked up the option, I think it would be fine. That's what I just don't disagree with, which was not your full point, but just little segments in there. I don't think no matter how much money you have as a team, this is a bad investment, right? If you're a billionaire, that doesn't mean you just get 5 helicopters.
Yeah,
right? One will do. This just feels like a bad investment. I would consider him for one more year, but if I was a GM and he was on the open market, I'm not giving him more than a 1-year deal because it would have to be a prove it deal. So if then I have him from age 33 to 35, making 18 to 20 million dollars, thinking to myself, I think it's only going to get worse. That's not something I want to lock my money into, regardless of how big my bank account is.
I don't disagree, but I think someone will. I think he's getting 3 by 20 and it's gonna end up working in his favor. But there's a value to just being able to throw the innings that he presumably can. But even this year, it was 144 compared to the 173 that he threw the year prior. I think he's a guy too that, like, if you can put him in the right environment where the ball isn't carrying out as much. And I think we always talked about, like, when the wind was blowing in, Shota looked a lot better, and when it was blowing out at Wrigley, it was a different story. I'm fascinated. I agree with you. Like, that's not where I would allocate that money, and especially when you have guys coming back. Because my first thought was, okay, yeah, that might not be the best investment, but you need warm bodies in that rotation. But then when you look at their situation, you say, okay, well, they actually are going to get some warm bodies back. They are going to have some guys healthy, and they did have some guys emerge. And I think from that perspective alone, it makes a lot of sense. I hope that this is allocated elsewhere, right? Like,
yes.
They better not just run it back with mostly the same squad, sign a couple relievers. Like, somebody needs to be signed for more than the Shota Imanaga contract.
Yes.
Or like, otherwise, then it's just a bad move, because then it's penny pinching. And if it's just for the sake of not spending, well, I'd rather have Imanaga than not allocate that money anywhere else and just save the money, right? Like, if I'm a fan. So that's the only way I'd be upset about it. But if this goes towards the Kyle Tucker fund, or this goes towards addressing the bullpen at leverage, they may look at it and say, well, we can give out like 2 or 3 reliever deals that we feel really good about. Then I think that makes a lot more sense.
What's the % chance Shota accepts the qualifying offer for about $22 million? I think it's very unlikely.
I think it's unlikely.
But I don't think it's impossible.
No.
I just have a feeling he's going to go out into the open market and he's going to see a lot of teams say, I don't know if we want to give you that 3rd year. And a guy like him might think to himself, you know what? I am just 33 years old. I can go out and prove it, make $22 million this year, and maybe lock in a 3-year contract after this season. I think it would be a gamble. If I was him, I would take whatever I can get now. But these guys have egos, and deservedly so. Like, if I'm Shota Imanaga, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, a year ago, I was one of the most exciting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Yeah, I had a down season. Let me get back in the lab and let me come out firing. And that's why I think it's a perfect situation for the Cubs. If he does accept that qualifying offer, you are getting a motivated guy who knows this could potentially be the last time he's making 8 figures, right, per year. And you get the best of the best from him.
Yeah.
And if he does give you a great year, great. You're probably not going to re-sign him again. And if he gives you a poor season, you made the right move of only giving him a 1-year deal. And then if he leaves, you get the draft pick. Like I'm thinking about some of the draft picks on the Cubs who were late first round, right? Nico Horner, 24th overall. The Dodgers got Michael Busch with the 31st overall pick. Now this, and correct me if I'm wrong, would probably be in like the 34 to 40 pick range.
Yeah, I think it would depend on how much money he gets, but I think you would get I think he gets more than 50 in the open market. And assuming he gets more than 50 in the open market, that means it's going to be an earlier comp pick for them. I think comp A, so it'd be like after the first round. It sets them up well, and I think they're probably hoping he declines it, but worst case, okay, you got him back and now you have more pitching depth, and like you said, he's pitching with some fire under him for an opportunity to potentially, earn himself more money. But I think if I'm him, I want to secure as much just bulk money as possible. Like forget the AAV, because if you're going to hit the market now a year older after, if you accept that QO, I would rather have the guaranteed, 50 million, let's say, over 3 years, just to be conservative, than 1 year 20. If he's realistic with his age and the way things are trending and things like that. So I think he declines it. I think he gets 50 plus million on the open market, and it works perfectly for the Cubs, who have been one of the best drafting teams in Major League Baseball, to your point, especially in recent years, between Shaw, Cam Smith. You look at a lot of the things that they've done recently, Horton, and they get an extra draft pick and capital here, and it works into their favor. And maybe that emboldens them to trade from this farm system a little bit too. So I don't hate it at all. They also have a 40-man crunch, so like it helps a little bit there too. It makes sense to me. And when that fastball is down at full tick, I do think that's worth looking at age 32, when he needs that fastball to be, his setup pitch.
100%. Before we wrap up on this and move over to first team All MLB, our own selections, and of course the second team as well, give me the most likely scenario of how this turns out. Does Shota accept or decline the qualifying offer? And then if he does, the most likely scenario in your mind, what does he get? What does his market look like?
I think he declines, and I think somebody, I don't know who, somebody will though. Somebody's going to give him 3 years, 50 plus million with incentives.
I kind of agree with you. And I think that team's the Angels. And I'm not just bagging on the Angels.
No, that does check. And honestly, that's not a bad move for them.
It's not a bad move for the Angels. We'll see, right? I think it could be a good move in year 1. Now, will it be a good move in year 2 or year 3? And Shōta Imanaga, I still believe in the guy. I think he can reinvent himself. I'm just saying, if I'm a general manager, and also we are in the offseason, I can't wait to play general manager for every team, just like we do throughout the offseason. So that's going to be really fun, stepping inside the shoes of what we would do. I just think the most likely scenario for him is he continues to regress, where that 3.91 ERA that he put up this year starts to turn into that 4.86 FIP.
Yeah.
That he ended up putting up. That was his underlying metric. That's when you're controlling strikeouts, walks, and home runs. And the home run problem was so bad. I mean, towards the end of the season, we're tallying up the home run totals and saying, oh, we gave up 27 home runs over this last however many innings. Next best was 19. It wasn't even close. So I'm worried about sending him to a ballpark that is conducive to home runs.
Yeah.
Maybe the Angels, if they're hitting home runs, maybe they can allow a few. We'll see.